Thanks everyone for joining us today at ConservAmerica for the latest installment of our webinar series. My name's Nan Hayworth and I chair the ConservAmerica Board of Directors, our executive board. ConservAmerica, as most of you probably know, is a nonprofit organization, and we are dedicated to developing and promoting market-oriented solutions to our environmental, energy, and conservation challenges. ConservAmerica has been around since the mid-1990s, but recently we've reinvigorated ourselves to help drive policy debates toward more meaningful and impactful solutions. And toward that end, we're working on several fronts, including on this webinar series, which we intend to provide information on challenges and opportunities in the environment, energy, and conservation spaces. For today's installment, I'm honored to welcome our Deputy Secretary of Energy, Mark Menezes, who will share with us some of the important work being done at the Department of Energy and the department's plans for meeting our nation's current and future energy challenges. Our Deputy Secretary serves as the department's principal advisor on energy policy and on a wide array of technology planning and management issues. He has an extensive background in energy, and in government and in business, having served as an executive at Berkshire Hathaway, a partner at Hunton & Williams, and as chief counsel at the House Committee on Energy and Commerce. Deputy Secretary Menezes, thank you for joining us today. Very much appreciated. And we'd love to hear if you can share with us just some introductory thoughts for us on the topics we've just mentioned.
Well, thank you, Nan. Really do appreciate that introduction. Thank you very much. And I am delighted to be joining you virtually today. You know, this is the first time that I have addressed ConservAmerica, and its partner EarthX, is my understanding. And but I really am honored to be here today. And thank you for having me. As of course we all know, the reason that we're speaking virtually and not at some nice auditorium someplace is, you know, we've barely been through the extraordinary year with COVID, and that really has presented a lot of challenges. You can see how we overcome these challenges, but it touches all aspects of our modern life. But we are committed to get through these challenges, and to, you know, really push through on the road to recovery and revitalization. So we'll have both challenges ahead of us, but we're excited about those challenges, and we really look forward to working together and accomplishing a lot of what we had had before the COVID, you know, hit us. You know, speaking for the administration, of course, for the department, I'd like to offer a few ideas about how we approach things. I'd like to also recognize, of course, that anybody who comes into government service, you know, you really appreciate the work of those that came before you, and what the department has been up to over the years. And it's an interesting place to work. As you know, the enterprise is broad. While we're called the Department of Energy, it wouldn't surprise a lot of your listeners if we were the Department of Science. In addition to the 17 national labs, you know, we have the energy program offices. We have a loan program office. You know, we have the NNSA. We have the National Nuclear Security Administration. You know, we have the obligation to maintain and support our nuclear deterrent. So it's very broad, and so you have to recognize those that have come before you, and those dedicated public servants as well. And so we build on what has come before us, but then we also, you know, have our own initiatives, and I'm happy to talk about that. And one thing, you know, with this administration, you know that the foundation of this administration is reducing taxation, supporting research and development, and removing unnecessary regulations and fair trade. When the president issued his deregulation order, he said, you know, to reduce 2 regulations for every 1 that you promulgate. We're on a pace right now across the entire administration where we have actually reduced 8.5 unnecessary and overly burdensome regulations for every 1 that we've promulgated. I mean, that's great. And and as a consequence of choosing this, innovation over regulation, that's our hallmark over here at Energy, and we can say that because, as you know, we are committed to research and development, and we take the taxpayer dollars that Congress has been pretty generous with us, and so we're good stewards of that, and we push that out. But we do feel that it's innovation that's going to get us through and address these challenges, that we face. And as a consequence, what is the result of those policies? As a consequence, before COVID-19, we have become an energy independent nation and economic powerhouse. It's our economy that just in January, when you listen to the State of the Union by the President, we had historic lows in the economic unemployment numbers, historic lows in all categories. It was our economy that drove the global economy. We saw this in the rise of the demand for oil and natural gas, for example. And the U.S., because of innovative breakthroughs, we rose to that occasion with the U.S. becoming the #1 producer of oil and natural gas. And I know that those that are history buffs you are aware of why the Department of Energy exists. It really was as a consequence of the energy crisis of the early 70s, and it was created back then to really address the real fear that we were always going to be dependent on other countries for our energy. And we have disproved that through the breakthrough in hydraulic fracturing technology, the multi-directional drilling, but clearing out, the regulatory burdens. We really have become an economic powerhouse built on the energy sector. So we're really proud about that. But having said that, all the time we have also become the #2 in the world on renewable energy, on wind and solar, and we're continuing to drive that. One of the hallmarks that this administration over here at Energy, we want to elevate solar to grid level. That's very important, and I'll talk about that a little bit more about the need for breakthrough technologies and energy storage to accomplish that. But we're truly all of the above, and we're very excited about that. And I think it's a way that not only have we become the leader globally in producing energy, and we are an energy independent country, we also lead the world by several orders of magnitude in actual greenhouse gas reductions. We reduce our greenhouse gases, more than any signatory of the Paris Accords. So we're very proud about that. We want to maintain that. We've reduced so much in our power sector that now our transportation sector now is our leading sector in emission reductions. And so we're putting the power of research and development, we'll talk about this a little bit later, and how is it now that our transportation sector can likewise look at new technologies and innovations so that we can drive even further reductions there. We like to say over here that we're trying to make our most reliable fuels like coal cleaner, and we're trying to make our cleanest yet intermittent fuels like wind and solar more reliable. And so together, as we can achieve that, we will have a very vibrant, reliable, secure energy system, and it's going to be in all of the above technologies. I haven't talked about nuclear, but this administration is committed to revitalizing and enhancing our civilian nuclear. One thing about nuclear, whether you're pro or you have trouble with nuclear power, what you find when you get over here is that other nations are moving to nuclear to help move to emission-free power supply sources. And as a consequence, they are looking at nuclear. Now, In the past, other countries always looked for U.S. for the leadership and the technology for this, and we would get them to sign these 123 agreements. Well, now we have seen that Russia and China can build and design nuclear plants. And so other countries are talking to them who do not require a 123 agreement on non-proliferation or non-enrichment for weapons purposes. And so for us to convince our friends and allies who are looking to this emission-free source of energy, we have to maintain the leadership. And so it is important that we have to get our price formation rules and our energy markets together. We have to continue to push to be a leader in that. And we've made some exciting announcements in that so that we can make sure that we're vibrant there too. So with that, I think I'll stop, and I look forward to any of your to questions that you might have.
Well, Mr. Secretary, thank you so much for that terrific overview, and it's exciting and inspiring. And if we can, I'd like to return to how DOE is advancing technologies to drive emissions reductions in transportation as well as in power generation. Can you share some more specifics with that? For example, California has been trying to electrify its transportation system. They've been moving very aggressively in that direction. And of course, advanced battery storage technologies are key to that. So if you can share with us a few more specifics on the kind of work that you're doing to catalyze innovation and move us toward that goal, that would be great.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to do that. With respect to transportation, as we have talked about, we see it. You can do these things several ways. The obvious one, of course, is electric vehicles. Right? You can do that. And of course, electric vehicles are, they're powered by batteries. Okay, so we need to improve, the battery technologies. And we're working on that. We need to remove the cost, try to, maybe look for new technologies. Rather new materials that you make these lithium-ion batteries out of. Okay, we know that we can do it. But we may be over-reliant on cobalt, lithium, made in other countries. And so we're constantly looking to see if, in fact, we can come up with new battery technologies. Mm-hmm. The other thing, of course, is infrastructure. We have, we are looking at ways to help modernize our grid, to be able to have more bidirectional flows, be able to make it more adaptable, that as you bring electric devices on the grid, it can help provide power, in other ways. The other thing that we can look at, and that we are looking at, is hydrogen. There's a lot of talk about hydrogen today, right? And there are a lot of ways that you can make hydrogen. You can make hydrogen, from natural gas through steam reformation. You can make it from nuclear facilities. You can, look for ways to electrolyze, water to make basically hydrogen. There's a lot of different ways. Renewables. There's a lot of good ways on that. We have, hydrogen at scale, so we can try to, bring that up in the transportation sector. You can also use biofuels, so that you can help replace the. I'm sorry, but I think my computer just knocked me off my own screen here, so just bear with me. On the biofuels, that we have quite a history here of investing in cellulosic, ethanol, other biofuels, biodiesel, that we can get in, and this helps to, reduce the emissions on liquid hydrocarbons. So it's these are all, many ways that we're looking at in the transportation sector to help, lower those emissions.
Mr. Secretary, can you comment for just a moment on the differential in pace between renewable sources that are being brought online, big projects that are being planned and built, versus the pace at which we're advancing storage technologies is sensitive to, as you mentioned, the use of conflict minerals and toxic minerals that may indeed add to our environmental problems in other ways. So talk with us about that differential.
Yes. I think we still need to have significant investment in the technologies to get us to where we can have the type of storage that we need at grid level so that it can continue to help bring on more and more emission-free sources, the intermittency of wind and solar, as I said, on our grid. You know, I was talking to the CEO of a major utility yesterday, who said that they have announced that they are going to be emissions-free emissions-free by 2050. And I said, okay, great. You know, it's fantastic. How are you going to get there? And they said, well, we got, you know, nuclear. We're going to bring in renewables. You know, we got some natural gas. We're going to phase that out. We're going to shut down the coal facilities. I said, okay. I said, is your demand going to be greater in 2050 than today? He said, absolutely. I said, okay, great. I said, okay, so that's how you're going to get there. He said, well, we have a gap. We can only account for about 80%. I said, well, where's the gap? They said battery. Storage is what they said, right? Your listeners know where we are on this, right? We can bring some storage. We've seen what Southern Cal Edison did. They want to bring in 700 megawatts. They put an RFP out. You had a lot of successful bidders coming in at a price that they can afford, but yet these are peaker units, right? So this is only to meet peak demand. It's not a base load kind of thing. So we still have our challenges. You know, we recognize that. One of the first things we announced when we came here was an energy storage grand challenge. And this really is to try to really improve dramatically where we are to be able to get this storage. And your listeners, I know, are sophisticated enough to know it's not storage in the sense where you just simply store things to run something at night, if you will, and then recharge them the next day. It is a dynamic, multi-directional flow, right, in real time to where you're actually pushing electricity out and storing it while it's in operation. It's just not sitting there just waiting to be used. So I distinguish that from Southern Cal Edison's plan, and it's a great plan, but those are peakers, right? They really just want to call on them only when they have to, which just underscores we still have gaps in the technology, and that's what we're really focusing on that.
And I'm assuming, Mr. Secretary, that when that's the case, when we're relying on peakers instead of having that baseload capacity, that equates to power outages for a lot of clients and customers. Is that part of the risk that we face if we can't catch up in terms of storage technologies?
Right. And, you know, we have these discussions with all countries and companies, you know, that have these great and wonderful aspirational goals, and we're there. We want to be in support. We want to help them achieve these goals. But having said that, and I'll just use California as an example. You know, California, you know, makes decisions that really are truly aspirational,
Yes.
And yet, when their people need power, we saw this in the 2000s, you know, they had made policy decisions that basically brought about a tight supply during a hot summer, and they couldn't get it. And so they had problems with their system then. And then fast forward, you know, to today, interestingly, when their customers need power the most, right? I mean, our system typically is designed to make sure that when people need it the most, right? When it's the coldest, right? They need heat. When it's the hottest, they need to be cooled, right? It's literally it's a matter of health.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you want them to be able to get their electricity, right? 95% of the time we run our system, it's fine, it's great, right? People get it there's no more affordable energy than in the United States, right? And we pride ourselves in that. But think about it. You know, you really want that system to work when your people need it the most. And California, it was interesting with California, with the record heat, and I don't mean to pick on California about this, I'm just using them as an example of what our goals are. Their load was not a maximum load demand. Their demand was not the highest it's ever been. They had high temperatures, but it wasn't even as high. And they had to, we had to issue an emergency order, and, you know, others were shipping energy into the state. So now on the good days, you know, California can push off a lot of renewables, and that's a good thing. So in mild temperatures, a lot of renewable is being used in California. It's being pushed off in the surrounding areas as well. So, and with the energy imbalance markets out there, you're able to take advantage of that, and you're able to pass the savings along to consumers. So again, 95% of the chance it may work. But again, our goal is to really help fund and those breakthrough technologies and get the policies right so that you can depend on your energy system.
It's so crucial, Mr. Secretary. You need reliability. And that goes right to my next question, which is about the grid modernization initiative. More specifically, if we could talk about that, it's intended to better integrate electricity sources, help with what we've been talking about, energy storage, distributed energy, and improve grid security, including cyber security. So if you could tell us more about that, especially in terms of the threats and challenges about which the president recently issued his executive order to make sure that the grid and the supply chain are reliable. Tell us what DOE is doing about that.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, this is really an exciting time to talk about, grid modernization. And to be sure, you know, we have built on the efforts of others. The goal of a very flexible modern grid is really key to help bring on, as we've said, these renewables. You know, we need to make it, you know, just much more flexible. You have inputs now with the DER. You know, people want energy through all kinds of inputs. Through the modernization, you know, we're digitizing everything. We're using control systems that we haven't used before. The analog days are gone. You know, it's really dynamic. Well, and smarter, right? Well, as it becomes that, it also becomes more vulnerable, because the one thing you do learn is these cyber threats are real, and our energy systems, you know, have been targeted. The other thing that we learned, you know, you might be aware, I was talking about the breadth of the Energy Department. Well, we also have these, you know, the power market administrations, right? And Bonneville Power, we have WAPA. I mean, these are big utilities. Well, they too invest in technologies to modernize the grid. Well, we discovered that because of the public bid laws, you know, they were purchasing transformers and important critical infrastructure and industrial control systems, you know, from China, just because they were the cheapest bidder. So we got to looking at that, and we got our Intel folks involved, and one thing led to another, and we got the BPS issued by the president because he realized that we were basically making ourselves more vulnerable by relying on these, you know, supply chains in other countries that just simply don't share our values. So one important thing about the bulk power system, EO, is that it sets up a process where we identify equipment on our system, you know, that could make us vulnerable, but that it's manufactured or provided by basically countries that are adverse to the interests of the United States. And it's important to know that these technologies have to really be able to do severe harm on our system. So it's not all everything, but it has to come from these adverse countries. And so we're in the process of identifying that, working with the industry to identify it. And then we're going to be creating a task force, which I will co-chair, or chair, I think, under it with my other interagency partners. And so we're going to get input from the industry, and we're going to, you know, take action on that. But it's a surprising real challenge. It happens right under our noses, right? Because, again, good public policy purposes, we don't want to overspend for things that we can get through a public bid law, but if we don't have restrictions where they need to be, we just make ourselves more vulnerable. And so we're just trying to, take some responsible action here.
Well, thank you, sir. Constant vigilance, clearly, and wise guidance. And I assume you have our national security and law enforcement apparatus also linked into this.
We do. Interagency partners. So we've got Department, of Homeland Security, of course, where we can share with the Department of Defense, because we have the responsibility under the FAST Act to ensure, the identification and protection of these defense critical energy infrastructure. So all those sites and facilities are under our watch as well. So we do have that. I wanted to talk to a little bit. You had mentioned the grid modernization initiative. This, for your listeners to know how we have brought together several of our labs to make and our variety of our offices here, to where it's a comprehensive cross-cutting collaborative effort to where we can identify the potential problems on the grid, in terms of what you need to be able to modernize it through breakthrough technologies, but also to how to make it more secure. And we've also announced, the grid storage launch pad that will be at one of our labs, PNNL, Pacific Northwest Laboratory, where we will essentially put up in place, the project, so that we can make sure that the safeguards that we're putting in place and the new devices that we're putting on can really hopefully protect us, and yet make it more flexible, more modern. We want it to all help us accomplish all of the goals that we have.
Mr. Secretary, that apropos of next generation technology, we all know the many benefits of nuclear power in terms of its reliability and, of course, its emissions profile. I know you're leading the DOE is leading cutting edge efforts to develop and demonstrate advanced nuclear reactor designs. Tell us just a couple of minutes what's going on with that.
Yeah, no, we're really excited about this. And as I had mentioned in my opening remarks, you really should care about nuclear, even if you didn't know that you needed, to be very much not only interested in it and concerned about it, but fascinated by it all. So, we've talked about the, under this administration, we did a nuclear posture review, which, shed light on what we needed to do in the nuclear deterrent and with our civilian nuclear fleet, and these are related. And so, our commitment has been to really revitalize and enhance the civilian nuclear capability. And we really are excited. We have, and Congress has helped us with this. I want to give due to Congress. Congress has given us money in this space. They recognize the need to do this. And I think your viewers probably saw that we just announced the Advanced Reactor Demonstration Program winners. We had quite a wide range of interested parties. This is really the next advanced reactor demonstration projects. And we've selected two winners. And just to give you an idea of the type of technology we're talking about, one was TerraPower. We know that, that uses sodium and it uses HALEU, which is, a high SA, low emissions new fuel. So it's a new fuel and it's a new coolant. It's not light water or pressurized water anymore. We're moving from that. And our second winner, or the two winners, X Energy, uses a triso fuel, and its gas is cooled. So this gives you an idea of where we're looking to go with the next technologies. You might have also seen where we've announced the versatile test reactor, and we've taken the unprecedented position that the fuel in the versatile test reactor will be plutonium metal fuel. So this is I think as visionary as it can be at this point. We still have a funding opportunity out in the nuclear space for another 3 to 5 next generation technologies, so that we can go beyond even the ones that were just selected. So we're really excited about it. It's a great time to be in the nuclear space. We know that that will be a key part of our future in our energy mix. And again, as I've said, it's really important for security reasons that we continue to maintain global leadership in this area, because when other countries look to us, they want to use U.S. technology. They want to have a relationship with the U.S. They want the 50 to 100-year relationship it takes when they decide to build nuclear generation for emission-free generation, for the next several generations.
It's very exciting, really at the cutting edge, and so beneficial in so many ways, Secretary. But of course, we are going to continue to rely on fossil energy as we develop all these very exciting innovations and alternatives in terms of both the generation and our grid and storage capabilities. So one of the key concerns we've talked about, obviously, is carbon capture and storage, and how that may combine with utilization capabilities to provide cost-effective, clean technology and that kind of solution for fossil fuel resources. So could you tell us a bit about the status of that technology, especially in terms of the current political and economic climate?
No, thank you for that. You're absolutely right. I mean, to address, the emission issues, you just take a look at our existing fleet, not only in power, but also refineries in the manufacturing. And ideally, this is, talk about breakthrough technology, right? But it's the carbon capture portion of this. And we have spent, I think, over $800 million on carbon capture technologies already, and we're going to continue to spend. Our goal, we realized that we had to bring the cost down. We had to bring the cost down. I mean, we have the technology, but it's capital intensive. We have to reduce it down by 50% than what it was, say, 2 years ago. We've already reduced that by another quarter. We probably have 25% still to go. In our Office of Fossil Energy, but it is a collaborative effort, we are teaming together to drive those costs down. So we have funding opportunities out there to help address that. And we've done studies on the sequestration, and we've done studies, and we have plenty of places in the U.S., to sequester, we think. On the utilization, as you know, it's when you capture CO2, you've got carbon, you've got oxygen, the CO2 has uses. Enhanced oil recovery is a good one. Your listeners might be surprised, there's probably more oil for enhanced oil recovery than there is in original drilling, potentially. I mean, it's that much. Just keep that in mind. So it is a good use of it. You have to transport it. You have to make sure that it's cost effective. But we have been funding those projects as well. We've got it on a coal plant in Texas, Petronova. We've got it on an AMD biorefinery, I think in Iowa. We have one in Port Arthur on a petrochemical plant there. So you can see how you think of coal units when you think of carbon capture, but indeed, it's really any emitting manufacturing, refinery, et cetera. So there's plenty to do there, but that is what it takes, for us to be able to get to where we want. Congress recognized that. They passed the 45Q tax credit. As I was telling somebody earlier, if you want to change social behavior, put in the tax code, right? Well, we did. We have been working with the IRS and Treasury to get the final rule out on the 45Q. So we know that there literally are billions of dollars stacked up waiting to move to drive these new technologies in carbon capture, utilization, and sequestration. And so we're supposed to have that out by the end of the year. So we're excited to have been a partner in pushing that out.
That's more exciting news, Mr. Secretary. And in fact, you mentioned financial incentives, dollars, resource flow, the financial aspect of this. Budgets being what they are, can you tell us a little bit more for a minute or two about DOE's approach to allocating research dollars?
Well, the the one thing you learn when you get here is that Congress, the administration proposes and Congress disposes, and they tell you how it is that you are to spend the money that they have actually appropriated. So when they do their work and they actually pass an appropriations bill, while there's no earmarks, there are these things called control points, and we have a good relationship with them. So we make sure that the monies that Congress gives us are spent and they are pushed out. When you go up to the Hill and you talk to them, they really want to make sure that you are pushing money out of the door. We do that. We have an op through our science labs, through our applied labs, through our offices. That's what we do, and this is a good thing. But we do it prudently and wisely. But we are committed to do that, and we have been doing that. So we work well with the appropriators. You have to as you go through this process, and with OMB, that's always a give and take, as to what goes into the president's budget on that. I will tell you that we do think that it's the role of the government to really fund the basic research and development, to take technological risks that the private sector will not do. You can expect, and you should expect, that for companies, not-for-profits, that Wall Street, you are going to invest in the R&D necessary for you to maybe gain a competitive edge, to create a new product. These are things that you can take that risk, okay? It's the economic risk. Mm-hmm. But, we don't have the Bell Labs and the things that we used to in the past, right? And so government more and more has now picked up the technological risk on these things, and that's appropriate. That's appropriate. And so then the question is, at what point in the technology readiness levels do you fund? Where should government be spending? And what this administration says is, look, it's really basic R&D. We want to fund those things that we know nobody else is funding, really, and they won't fund because the risk is too high. The technological risk is too high on this, and that's an appropriate role that we find that we can take. Now, as you move through the technology readiness levels, there's that valley of death you hear about, and who funds that, right? Well, we have established a chief technology officer here that runs our Office of Technology transfers, and so as a consequence, it's important that we need to make sure that we push that technology out for commercial deployment. So we are set up to do that, and we have money set aside to help push it through so that we can get it out the doors to commercialize it, because you want to see the benefit, of all the work that you're doing. When you talk to taxpayers, they might like the idea, that we have high particle physics experiments going on, at a lot of our labs, to unlock the secrets of the universe. That's fine. But they also want to see some very practical applications so that we can point to and say, well, look, this is what we've actually done with it. And hydraulic fracturing is one of them. Multi-directional drilling is these are practical applications that have had real events. The CRISPR technology, is some of the money that we spent to develop that. Which recently won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry, one of the shortest periods of time that one of our scientists at a lab actually invented something that was recognized so early in the process of it being commercialized. So that's what we're about here. It's really exciting to be over here.
We're very glad you are there. No question, Secretary Menezes. And in our final couple of minutes, we've got about 3 minutes left with you, and we thank you so much for spending time so generously with us. Very quickly, our exports of crude oil and liquefied natural gas Any news and, looking forward, we optimistically to a second term, any perspective on where we might be going with those kinds of initiatives?
Right. I mean, so what you've seen with us, so we've continued to license and authorize these LNG export facilities. We have recently authorized them on the West Coast. We have one on the East Coast. We have mostly in the Gulf of Mexico, and so we're going to continue to do that. It's interesting. A lot of these projects were funded by Asian interest, and there's some initially with the idea that this was going to go to Asia because of Fukushima. A lot of the Asian countries gotten off of nuclear. They were looking to import a lot of LNG because of the price differential on the Henry Hub and the global price of oil. It was easier to go ahead and have it made here and then ship it out. Well, it turns out that what we did when we got here, we removed any requirements of a destination clause in these contracts. We wanted to try to create a global marketplace for LNG, much like in the oil market. So oil is traded when it's on the ships, when it's on the ocean. Sometimes it can go to where it's contracted for. Other times it literally is there, and it can go as market conditions change based on price signals. We wanted to try to do the same thing with LNG, and guess what? It worked. Now, most of our LNG goes to Europe, all right? And you know why they're excited about it? Because they no longer have to take natural gas from Russia. They have become over-dependent on Russia, and Russia, if we know anything about Russia, it uses their energy sources as a leverage to keep countries, doing what they want, right? So it's a coercive measure. It's not a freeing method. As a consequence of that, there have been the Lithuanians renegotiated their contract with Russia. They saved like $60 million on their contract. U.S. LNG now is going to get a load of this: 38 countries on 5 continents. I mean, who would have thought that, right? And so it's great. And so it frees up our friends and allies. They can now better negotiate with Russia or take U.S. LNG. We're trying to get more infrastructure built with our European partners just to allow that. It frees them up. And it's literally just happened in the last year or two. All this has happened. So it truly is an exciting time to be over here. I hope your listeners feel enthusiastic about being part of it. But that's what you can expect, in the next 4 years. Although I want to make clear, I can't comment on the election, So, but that's how we see things.
Well, we cannot thank you enough for your perspective, Mr. Secretary, and we wish you continued success on behalf of our country and of our planet. And I'd like to, on behalf of ConservAmerica, extend thanks to all the folks who have taken time to listen in on our webinar. We are going to make it available on our website. And again, our deepest thanks to Deputy Secretary of the Department of Energy, Mark Menezes, for being our guest today.
Thank you, Nan, and thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir.